So lesson 4, 6, square roots and cube roots. You've gone through square roots before. Cube roots is the new thing. Cube roots is the new thing to you. So I have some vocabulary words. The first thing we're going to talk about is square roots. Okay, we'll save cube roots till the last. And some vocab, and then I don't think so. We're not going to cut our eraser out, please. Square root, perfect square. Make sure you get it written down in your notebook, and then I'm going to talk about both of them. You guys ready? All right, so square root. It's when you take a number and you multiply it by itself. So like, let's just use 64. So if I do 8 times 8, that gives me 64. The square root would be 8. Okay? That's the square root. That number we're multiplying by itself. Okay? A perfect square is when a square root's a whole number. So, like, for example, 64 would be known as a perfect square. Because why? The square root is a whole number. What's the square root of 64? 8. 8's a whole number, so 64 is another perfect square. What other perfect squares are out there? 25. Why? Yep. Give me another one. 100. Okay. Why? 12 and 12. If I were you, that's one I would mentally put in my head and never forget. 12 times 12 is 144. That will help you. Brian. 16. 4 times 4. Give me another. 49. 7 times 7. Yeah, here? You're right. What two numbers give me 36? Yep, very good. 9, 3 and 3. 81, 9 and 9. 4, 2 and 2. No, good try. Good try. Rain? 1, 1, yeah, 1 times 1. Got another one, Hunter? Yep, she just said 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Last one, Carver. Yeah, but we never really talk about that, do we? Got another one? 49, 7 and 7. Another one is 100, 10 and 10. Okay? Now, some people say, well, if I don't know the square root, let's just go back to 64. Let's say, well, you want to find the square root of 64, but you don't know what it is. A lot of people would do this. Well, if I take 64 divided by 2, that's going to tell me the square root. Some people say, well, 32 is the square root. 32, that means 32 times 32 is 64. You cannot divide by 2 to find the square root. It does not work that way. Everything today is going to be whole numbers. So you won't have to worry about decimals. Okay? Everything today is going to be whole numbers. 121. That's another one I put in my mind. 12 times 12, 144. 13 times 13, 169. I would know all the way up to 13. No, just wait a second. All right, so another thing you have today is the radical sign. So the radical sign is what is known also as the square root sign. but we call it radical too. It's kind of got two names for it. And radical sign, that's what you're going to be using as like in algebra 1 and algebra 2. Mostly algebra 2, you're going to be calling it radical. But it also is the symbol for square root. We're going to talk about negative square roots too. So here's the thing. Every positive square root has two answers. Okay, so let's talk about that. What's the square root of 49? Kids, you know 7 times 7 is 49. 49 also has another square root. Negative 7. Why negative 7? Yep. So every square root that's a negative or a positive under there has two answers. So a positive 7 and a negative 7. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. Okay, so you can write the answer like this then, because that tells me positive and negative 7. That's what the sign is for. It's to tell me that it has two answers. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so if I asked you what the square root is of 36, what would you tell me? Positive negative 6. See? Okay. Now let's go to Larissa's and let's do the square root of negative 49. What's the square root of negative 49? Well, what's negative 7 times positive 7? Okay. Are they the same number? Negative and positive 7? That's not the same number. So it doesn't have one. Anything that looks like this, that has a negative with it underneath that radical sign, is not possible because it doesn't have two of the exact same number that will give you that. Like you guys said, well, I know negative 7 times positive 7 is negative 49. You're right, but are these the two same numbers? No. So it does not have one. And you will see some of that in your homework. So all you need to write is not possible. That's it. Okay? Underneath that radical sign. It might look like this. Yeah, here? It might look like this. Okay, what's the difference now? Inside, outside. If it's outside, you can still find the square root. Because what's the square root of 49? Okay, then this negative would just come below. Okay, it would just drop down. Okay? Questions so far? So if it's, this is possible. This, right. Because there's not two of the exact same numbers that will give you that answer. So if it's like this? Yes. Yep. So like if I do this, so if I have 81, the answer to this would be positive and negative 9. If I have radical negative 81, not possible. Okay. And if I have negative radical 81, it would be negative 9. Yep. That's it. No, not done yet. You got the cube roots yet, which is just as easy, honestly. Any questions on this? Okay, so quickly, we've pretty much done this already. You know the answer to this would be positive and negative 10, positive and negative 6, positive and negative 9. All right, let's talk about estimating. Let's talk about estimating. They're going to give you a square root like this, square root of 35, and they want you to estimate it to the nearest perfect square. So you know the nearest perfect square is what? But what's the square root of that then? So that you would have 6 as an answer. Okay? So you're going to find the nearest square root, I guess. Sure, you can write positive and negative 6 if you want. Not necessarily. For sure, I want you to do it for this. For sure. Estimating you can do it for, that's fine. But I'm not going to require. I mean, I for sure want it when you're finding the actual square root of something. Okay? What about this one? Negative 10. Well, you know what 10 times 10 is? 100, so you know it's going to be approximately 100. What is 11 times 11? 121. So, but it's still closest to 10, I believe. So negative 10 would be your answer here. Okay? So you're looking for whatever square root it's closest to. Okay? Making sense? All right, let's talk about cube roots. Cube root. This is the new part to you. This is when you take a number by itself 3 times instead of 2. Correct. 3 times 3 times 3. 27. 27 is a cube root. 3 times 3 times 3. I'm actually going to use that one example here. Anybody need this yet? Okay, then I'm going to give you, there's 3 really, really important rules about cube roots, and then I'll start explaining to you what happens here. So your 3 important rules about cube roots. Cube root of a positive number is positive. Cube root of 0 is 0, obviously. Cube root of a negative number is negative. So what these rules basically say is, when you find an answer for a cube root, it's only going to be one answer. It's not going to be positive and negative. It's either going to be all positive or all negative. It's not going to have 2 answers to it. So for a cube root, you shouldn't have this. You should not have this with your answer. Okay? That's just with square roots, and I'll show you why here in a second. Everybody good? Okay, so let's do a few together. So this says, what's the cube root of 8? So I know there's a number I can multiply by itself 3 times to get me 8. 2. Okay, I know it's 2. Let's talk about this one down here. What's my cube root of negative 27? Negative 3. Not negative 9, because negative 9 times negative 9 is 81. So I know it looks like this. Negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Now, why do you, so negative 3 would be my answer. I'm just showing you what it would look like, okay? Now, why do you suppose my answer has to be negative? It can't be both here, Evan. Negative 27, right? What's that? It has to be a negative 3. Because it will work inside this time. If you have a negative inside when you have a cube root, it will work. Because you have that number that you can multiply by itself 3 times to give you the same thing. With cube, square roots, it doesn't work that way. Because remember, when you multiply a negative and a negative, you get a positive. That's why. For here, if I multiply all 3 of those, I'm still going to get negative 27. So that's okay. It's okay to have a negative in that radical sign. Okay? So the answer to this is negative 3. What if I said, well, positive 3 is also the answer? Why is it not? 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, not negative 27. Okay, so it has to be a negative number. So if I said, let's see, I don't know, what's another one? 4 times 4 times 4. What's 4 times 4 times 4? 16. 16 times 4 is, no, 16 times 4. 64. So it could look like this. So I know it would be 4. 4 would be my cube root there. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64, okay? See, this is what I do. When I have cube roots, I think to myself, do I know what 5 times 5 times 5 is? 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Put that in your mind. Right. What's 100 times 100 times 100? 1,000. It's 1,000. Okay? Also put that in your head, because when they ask you to find something, when they ask you to estimate, you automatically have two that you can work off of. Because you can say, oh, well, if this is 124, I know close to that. Oh, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125, right? So I know my closest cube root to this is 5 if I'm estimating. Okay? For example, let's just do one like this. Let's do this. The cube root of 343. So here's what I would think to myself. What's 5 times 5 times 5? Okay, so I know it's above 5. What's 100 times 100 times 100? 1,000. So I know it's between 6 and 9, right? So then I would start guessing and checking from there. Well, okay, what's 8 times 8? I know 8 times 8 is 64. 64 times 8 is 100. There's 1,000. Yep. So let's see, 48, 49, 50, 51. So is it going to be 8? So I would try 7. So I just guess and check. And you know half of these 49 times the number 7 is 3. Oh, guess what the cube root is? 7. Use what you know and work off of it. Some of you think, well, I don't know. I'm just going to have to pick a number out of thin air and use it. You don't have to do that, because you already know 5s and you know 10s. Work off of what you know. Okay? Let's see. Is that all I have? Oh my gosh. That was it? I guess that's it. Let's look at your homework.